Well, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our panelists here this morning, and we are going to talk and have a fairly robust conversation on lead generation. And we have, to the far right, we have Greg Olson. Give it up for Greg. Susan Baier. Pamela Slim. And Karley Cunningham. And they're going to pass their mic. I'm always going to have my mic because I like being in control. And they're going to do a brief introduction of themselves, and then we will start our first round of questions.
Good morning. Is this thing on? Okay, so good morning. My name. Thank you. Take two. Good morning. My name is Karley Cunningham. I am the founder of Big Bold Brand. I am here from the Great White North, also known as Vancouver. And I am a business growth accelerator. And you know a lot about me if you were here yesterday. Thank you, Pam. Is it working? Oh, now it's back again. It's just toying with me. For fun, I clip myself to a thing called a bicycle, ride up thousands of feet, and send myself hurling down it. That's my idea of fun.
I'm Pamela Slim, and my favorite thing to do is bring great ideas to life through great IP. And probably everything I've learned in business, I learned from rolling around on mats with people for 18 years doing capoeira, the Afro-Brazilian martial art, and then 5 years in MMA. And I can trace every business success and every experience with learning about failure back to the mat.
I can't beat that. I'm Susan Baier. I'm the founder and CEO of Audit. I am a quantitative researcher. We help thought leaders build their reputation with original research. I wasn't always a math person. My undergraduate degree was in literary writing and 17th century poetry with a minor in medieval art and architecture. And if you want at lunch, I can recite the prologue to the Canterbury Tales in Middle English.
Can't follow that. Hi, everybody. Greg Olson with Growl Agency. We're data therapists. Sounds exciting. Something interesting about me, I've been rescuing black and tan dogs for over 30 years. So why black and tan? Well, we love Rottweilers, and Dobermans seem to find us. Right now we have two wonderful Rottweilers and a Doberman.
Give it up one more time for our panelists. All right, on lead generation, question number 1. What do you specifically do, or do you have a specific strategy for meeting and making new contacts that do not know you today?
Well, I come to anything that Henry tells me to go to, so that's easy. I had a vision for a long time ago, starting something different, a different type of networking event, and it was a come as you are. And so I was chatting with a friend about it over beers, and he goes, yeah, we should do that. I said, well, I've always wanted to call it Casual Friday, but everybody told me I was nuts to hold a networking event on a Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. He goes, let's try it. So we did, and 20 people showed up. And I just sent out the invite yesterday for the one, this is 5 years later now. I sent out the invite yesterday, and within 15 minutes, there were 20 people signed up. And people love it because I give them an excuse to check out of work early, but still work on a Friday afternoon. And I found a co-host who has a lovely patio and a beer tap at their law office. So they co-host all of them. We call it Casual Fridays because, as you heard, I like to bike. I live on the North Shore, and I'm like, if you want to go riding and show up muddy, just show up. And it is genuinely a come as you are and a no sell. And that is just something by the product of the people that I invited that just naturally does not happen. And people will say, it's not schmarmy, it's not salesy. I just get to meet really good people. And that's what I love to do the most, is connect and cross-pollinate people. And that's how I've grown a network that spans the world. So bringing people together in an environment and inviting like people and inviting them to invite like people has really worked well for me for building my local network, and then following different leaders like the folks on this panel, like Henry. I hope Mark will invite me to some things now. I get to meet really cool people like you.
My favorite is a watering hole strategy. And so watering hole is a place where other wonderful people have gathered folks who would be ideal clients like this. And one of my favorite is to be the weirdo in the room. So it's so wonderful often to be in a room with like-minded folks, coaches, consultants, speakers, agency owners. So I feel my people, and it's so fantastic. Even more favorite is to be the weirdo in the room, where I am the only certification agency owner in a room filled with software engineers or data scientists, because instead of bumping into each other like, how's biz? Ooh, it's hard. And we're sharing encouragement. When you're the weirdo in the room, you are the only one of your kind. And therefore, you're often the go-to person in that group. So I'm always mainly looking to be the weirdo in the room, even probably in this room, I'm the weirdo, but it's a really, it's a really effective strategy.
Yeah, even when you're not trying. If you are not familiar with the Edelman Trust Barometer, it's come out for decades about trust in the world. This year's Edelman Trust Barometer found that in the US, 59% of people believe that business leaders are intentionally lying to them and manipulating them to sell something. We live in a society where the baseline is not neutral, it is distrust. And I think getting connected with people requires that we build trust for them. We do that using what I refer to as relentlessly helpful thought leadership. And there's basically two elements to that. Number one, give away your perspective and your advice without asking anything in return, relentlessly. Right? That means avoiding every single urge you have to require a meeting to provide somebody with information, to ask for their email, or to try to sell them something as a tagline at the end. The second thing is to adopt a philosophy of which you are asking, how else can I help, all the time? Thinking about ways that your prospects and the people you are serving are stumbling in their efforts to get where they want to go, where you can help. You know somebody who can help. You have tackled that problem yourself in the past, and offer it up and ask it every single opportunity that you have. And that's been very effective for us.
A couple things come to mind for me is a mentor a long time ago said to be seen everywhere always. And I think our team at Growl, and when we first started it, it felt like I was everywhere. It was like 12 hours a day, just going on and on. And so our team now, they're actually being the voice of us. They're actually being the face of Growl. So it's not just me anymore or Libby. It's actually others they're out there speaking and talking and going to events across the country. So I think it's that we hear that all the time, that goes, well, I hear your name a lot. I hear it in different places. And the other one is yes and. Anybody done any improv or gone to improv? And so for years I did improv. My wife has been to many shows that some were good, some were not. But it was this yes and mentality, right? So, and I believe in that yes and. It's like when Henry called, emailed me like, hey, do you want to come to this thing and speak on a panel? And we talk about those things on our shoulders. Says, I don't know if I want to speak, right? I don't know these people. But you just say yes and you go, right? And you say, I am going to be involved. And that yes and mentality is something I will say to all of you when you're asked or approached. You say yes and you move forward into that. And I think you will grow immensely from that yes and. There's not many people that say yes and just help others.
I almost want to ask for another round of applause just after question number one. Let's go for it, people. Question number 2. We sometimes get so caught up in, oh, I think we need a bigger list. And in today's business climate, just the idea of a database is short-sighted. Today, your database is so much larger when you think about a CRM system, an email listserv, your connections on LinkedIn, your friends on Facebook, your Instagram followers. I mean, bing, bang, ding, dong, they're everywhere. We're building sort of this global database of different segments. But we think that the more connections we have, the more opportunities are out there. Many of these people have been in our orbit for a long time. Are you specifically doing anything, I guess, to mine for that sliver called gold within your database or the ecosystem of your collective databases?
I have a habit of tiny marketing actions, as you know, and just to let you in a little bit on how and why I developed it is I needed something to chase, and that's what you heard about the gold stars. Because my mom, when I was little, prior to kindergarten, and you can imagine how bored I was in kindergarten when I got there, when I tell you that she would have me do activities that were kindergarten level, and she would give me a gold star every time I completed something. So she imprinted what she didn't know then was a dopamine hit that all the apps use now. So as one of my 5 tiny marketing actions, I have to do 5 LinkedIn connections, and what I review, not reaching out and connecting and saying, hi, we haven't met, is a reading through people's posts and going, hey, congratulations on launching your book. High five on completing that thing. When they say, provide your thoughts, or what was your story, or what are your insights, is providing those insights in the comment and making sure you tag that person and making sure that it is meaningful to them. So it's not going years in between my top contact list, as I am always on the lookout for who's doing what, who's feeling what, and how can I contribute to them in an ongoing manner so that I'm just popping up and being top of mind.
I think precisely about language, and so it's in the spirit of what you're talking about for mining. Sometimes I think of a bit of a twist on that, because sometimes we tend to think just, what can I get out of people, or what more, which is not the spirit, right, in which you're talking about that word. When I think specifically about partnership, through the years, I've really learned to see the truth that my folks in my community are really thought partners. And so when I'm writing a book or working on something, I do a lot of like, have you heard of something? Or what do you think about this? I'm working on this idea. What do you think? And there's a lot of sharing and partnering out loud. And so what ends up happening through the years is I get a lot of really cool stories, which of course can show up in things like books, but also where I have a feeling with my community, which is true, that we're partnering in the way that we're developing our work. And so in that kind of perspective, it can feel better to me to have this back and forth. I've learned there's also a lot of silent partners. My record for somebody signing up for something from being on my newsletter list is 17 years. She said, I've been on your list for 17 years, and I was so excited to finally be able to sign up for this one class. And so knowing that there's this silent partnership sometimes is really effective, and not being afraid to look at my community as people who can help build my body of work, because then they feel invested and then they get more excited to share.
As I have been speaking, not just presenting research, which I do a lot with clients, but actually speaking more, my list has grown considerably with people that I don't know. I've never met. They've heard about me. And one of the things that is part of my mission this year is to develop a more strategic approach to connecting with those folks and helping to build trust. So I'm on the advice of our friends at Predictive ROI, which is an agency, and they just are so good at helping you build your list ethically and responsibly and from the standpoint of being relentlessly helpful. I'm in the process right now of implementing for my entire list a series of 8-week email phases in which every week when you get on the list, there's a sort of a warm-up sequence to make sure that you want to be on the list, sort of thing. And then you dump into the first of a number of sequential 8-week email series, 7 which are just helpful advice based on research, based on my model, whatever, have not a word about how you can buy anything from us. And then the 8th one is very short and sweet and says we have an opportunity if you'd like to work with us in the next quarter, or you can come, please you're invited to an event that I'm going to do, a webinar or something like that, and that's it. And then they go through that one, and then they go into another one, which is a separate series, a separate set of emails. Again, 7 to 1, helping versus saying this is how we can help if you want some help with that. And I think that strategically that's going to let people know what I'm about, what my philosophy is, what my advice looks like, and the kinds of topics that I cover, and hopefully they'll feel closer to understanding me a little bit better, and I'll have an opportunity to engage with them. So we're trying that this year.
So, as your data therapist, that's our team. It's really not my title, but I would say our team's titles. We look at messy CRMs, right? And I think that's when I talk to companies or talk to younger people even, how important is your network, right? Each of you, think of your network you have today. That grew over a long time. They didn't, when we were younger, I guess some of us, we didn't have third-party data concerns, right? We weren't on the back of TikTok or the back of Facebook, right? Growing our business. So what just happened, almost happened to people. I know a few of you are probably TikTok stars out here. But when that was going to go away, then I think a lot of people might have lost a lot of their business, a lot of their contacts, right? Because that first-party data. And it gets confusing, 0 party, first party, second. But just think of first party as what you own and how you've grown your own business and how important that is. So we talk a lot about, yesterday there was a lot of conversations around trust, right? And really that's what we want as those people. We want to work with people that we trust to call them up and they'll actually take our phone call if anybody actually calls anybody anymore, but let's pretend we did. And that is what we work hard at Growl. We help our clients work out. How do we get through all that messy CRM, right? And I was talking to someone yesterday, in my CRM, I have someone named John Blue Truck, right? Because I didn't write anything else, but that's somebody I met that his name is John and he has a blue truck, right? I don't know what to do with that information, right? But I'm hoping I can figure out how to add more to it in the future. So what we do is really try to keep building up that database. As small as it is, how do we keep it clean? Now there's going to be hundreds of tools. AI is just a magic wand, be careful what you do with it, but it can really help over time clean up those databases you have and then find those like-minded resources or like-minded individuals that maybe you can talk to about your products and services.
Nice. I've got another mic, so let's start with Greg this time.
Okay, let's go.
Oh. All right. Well, question number 3 or round number 3 is, depending upon how long you have been in business or running an agency or your own consulting practice, we have a cadre of past clients. I think sometimes the mistake that professionals make is, well, if they worked with me once, they know me, they will call me back when they need me. Or if they've written me a check once, they automatically know all of the different ways that we can be of service to them. What are you doing to circle back, look in your rearview mirror, and look for new business with past clients?
Yeah, this is a problem for agencies and business owners. I think you build up your business sometimes with these really great clients over the years, and Growl's no different. We have a handful of people that have been with us for years. They've left one company, gone to the next, and they know us maybe as way back. We were, redesigning websites, right? We had a great group of graphic designers. We don't have that anymore, so don't call me for that. Okay, so I'll just say it. But that was something we did. And then all of a sudden, fast forward, that person leaves, goes on their company, and their company calls us up and says, hey, I really like what you did for us in 1999. I'd love you to do the same thing again, right? And so we didn't do a very good job of like letting them know, hey, we're growing, you're growing, we're all growing. Here's what we do today. So fast forward, what we're doing now is we have this little tool we call a virtual roadshow. And that part is implemented to help us reach out to some of our current clients, but some of our past clients, friends of Growl, let's say, that we're actually giving, it's like tips and tricks about what's happening in the industry around, of course, data, around things like that, and a little bit about Growl, but we want them to have that light bulb moment. So they're going, oh, you guys do this now. This is what you do, right? And so I can start sharing some of that new terminology that we have with them. Data therapy, right, is kind of that new thing, not graphic design, okay? So we have to reach out to them and touch base and get a moment without selling them anything, but letting them know a little bit about, hey, we're all changing, we're all growing. I'd like to share something with you.
How else can we help informs this activity for us as well. If you've seen Susan Cain's book, if you read Jamie's book, which is amazing, you'll see, the research behind those books, it's a big, big undertaking for anyone. I don't care what your marketing budget looks like. It's substantial. And you don't have a client paying for it. You're paying for it yourself. So we have a lot of clients who aren't doing that every single year from an investment standpoint. And so thinking about how else can we help, there's a couple things we've introduced to keep, our friend Stephen Wessner teaches, don't ever let your clients run out of future with you. So the first thing I've done is, if you've done a study with us, one of the things we're going to do is, obviously we're keeping in touch with you, but the next year or maybe 2 years later, we're going to do a refresh of your existing research that you already did. We're going to run the same survey again. It's very cost effective, but now the report we write, the results we give you, compare what you saw 2 years ago to what you see today. And it's a whole new opportunity for you to present perspective and thought leadership based on what's changed or what hasn't. So it's a super affordable way for them to squeeze more juice out of the investment that they've already made. The other thing is we now build assessments, scored assessments for clients who you could put it on your website. You could provide customized feedback based on how the respondent answered all the sections individually plus overall. And you've got something that is not only going to collect you first-party data and give you a lot of insight and stuff you can analyze over time. I have one client who has 3,000 of responses on her assessment. I have another client who's sending an invitation to the assessment to the audiences that she's speaking to before her event, and then presenting their results as part of her keynote and comparing them to everybody else. So we're taking advantage of their existing thought leadership and point of view and research to build them something that can continue to generate interaction and data, and again, squeeze more juice out of their book or their keynote or their research or whatever they've got. So for us, it's all about how else can we help? What else can we do to get you further in the journey without necessarily having to spend as much again?
I think a lot about the power of reintroduction, because I've been in business 29 years this year, and I've gone through a lot of different phases of what I have done through the years. And so we can assume that those closest to us know what it is that we do, but they don't, because very often we have friendships. I had my friend Rohit Bhargava, if you know Rohit, who writes the Non-Obvious newsletter and runs Idea Press Publishing. He was visiting in town. I ran a learning lab in Mesa for 8 years. And so he was stopping by and we were just chatting, and he's like, oh, what are you up to? And I'm like, oh, I'm working with thought leaders to expand, codify their IP and expand through certification. And he was like, oh, you do? He goes, I think I need to work with you. It was just a social visit to catch up and say hi, but by reframing and reminding people closest to you what you do, that can be really helpful. So you can do it on LinkedIn just to do a reintroduction. Hey, it's been a while. I'm curious what you've been up to. Here's what I've been up to. And then you can really specifically frame that. I had one of my clients, Rob, from the UK, who's a sound engineer, and he told his sister in a clear way, in a reframe, what he did. And she was like, that's what you're doing now? And she sent him a $5,000 client. So anybody in your life, make sure they know what you're doing now.
Oh, so many ways I could go with this. One of the ways that I have done it is ensuring that when my clients are working with me, learning from both Susan and Pam, is knowing who else I can connect them with and listening very carefully and intently for when they have another problem, whether they're expressing frustration. They haven't even told me. I'm trying to pull the thread to find out how else I can help. And then I'm going, hold on a second. So you're just told me you're struggling with this. Oh, you're struggling with writing your book. And let me even go to a real example, because that one was just a natural one that popped up. But I was having a first coffee with another marketing person who had taken a year sabbatical to write his book. And he said, I am having trouble finding a publisher. Well, let me introduce you to Henry. I know a guy, right? So part of my strategy to not run out of that runway is to make sure that I am top of mind, because I am the go-to gal. And my clients know that. And I show up at networking events and lunches where some of the folks who I have connected over and over again will tell everyone else, if you need something, you call Karley. So I know that no matter what problem they have, I am the first phone call that they're making, because I have built that network. And that's another reason that I continue to do Casual Fridays, even though I haven't seen a lead come out of that for a year. I know that it's building my brand and my reputation.
Wow. Next question, round 4. You may or may not have had this conversation or this experience before, but many people who've been around the block have. And that is, you are currently working with a great client. Maybe it's a $30,000, a $10,000, $100,000 campaign of sorts. And you think, oh, maybe I should work on our relationship. And so I'm going to take you to lunch. And we start talking, and it's like, well, what else is going on in your world? And all of a sudden, your current or your active client says, oh, well, we are very excited. We are working on this new thing, fill in the blank. And all of a sudden, you're sitting across the table, and it's like, what? We could have helped you with that. And then your client says, I didn't know you did that. And then they kick you when you're down. Because the next words out of their mouth are, if I had only known, I would have rather spent this money with you. What are you doing to keep what are you doing to keep your antenna up for new opportunities with current clients?
I think we're really trying to communicate what we do. I'll say we've really shifted our gears over the years, and we've had this happen to us before, where we were trying to be we're trying to do too much for our clients, right? And I think many of you, or a few of you, would understand what that means, where we tried to say this client got to know us as something that would do everything for them. That yes and mentality probably went a little far. And I think the yes and mentality can now be, like you were saying, I can introduce you to someone to support that. So we have gotten into that instance before where the thing we're really good at, we didn't get asked to do because they thought we did something else better. So I think part of what we're doing now is, like I've described before, we're reaching out to these clients in a more effective manner. I'm not sure that, I mean, we do an email newsletter, I think 3 or 4 people read it a month. I think that's probably, I don't know, I joke. We track, I ask our team, like, who reads this, so. But I do think we try to do a lot of reach outs with our current clients so they know exactly where we stand in our expertise. We have worked really, really hard to specialize, right, in our expertise, and we are continually going deeper and deeper in it. So there's less people that they know that they can call to fix what we do. What happens to us is somebody gets hired into that organization and that person doesn't know us. And I think that's the point in agency and any of our worlds, that we're always trying to get to know more people in especially larger organizations, because they hire a guy or a gal that comes in and that person doesn't know who we are. So they go and hire another agency, another SEO, PPC, digital, HubSpot agency, because that's who they trust and they work with. So you've got to work harder to get that relationship built, because just you have a relationship with the person in the company that you've worked with for 10 years doesn't mean that that new person is going to take that same relationship forward. So now you have to go and earn that trust with another person.
I think this is an extraordinarily powerful opportunity to actually build trust with that client. This doesn't happen that much to me, only because I'm a weirdo and very few people do what I do for the people I do it for. What does happen is that agencies do something on their own because they don't realize that I could help. So sometimes I'll have an agency that's like, oh, we're just going through this, we're building a survey, and it's just been a nightmare. And they didn't realize maybe that I could have been of help. So for me, the most important thing for that client to understand is that my mission is always going to be to their success. Regardless of who is helping them and where the money's going, I want them to be successful. So my approach in these situations is to offer help of any kind I can. So for example, I would be more than happy to look at your survey and provide some perspective, advice, something like that, if it would be helpful. Now, I'm not going to kick you for it. I'm not going to say, this is bad, you need to pay me to do it. I'm going to say, how can we optimize this for your success? And that's true whether they're working with somebody else or, and I won't badmouth another researcher, how can we make this better for you? Because what I know is that the next time they will come to me, because the process of having me help was better than them trying to do it themselves. And so I think that it's a great opportunity to remind your clients that you're not here to fight over their budget. You're here to make them successful, and collaborating with anyone they're working with is towards that end for you. And you can be generous and kind and supportive, and their loyalty is the reward that you will get.
I'm really thinking a lot about the staying focused in the niche, because there are areas in the past where somebody would say, ooh, I'm thinking about doing this, and I think, oh, I've done that before in the last decade or something. And now I'm beginning to zero in, like my example yesterday with Christina, who does pricing, to be looking for people who I can refer and really include in our business model, where I can be selling an excellent service that somebody else specializes in, to be increasing the revenue, because I have had that in the past of just increasing the scope and then feeling more out of control and out of my core zone of genius. So that's been really exciting, to find PB&J partners, to create productized services with them, and then we can just include it as part of the package of what we do. Looking also, right, like at Brian, where they're like, oh, do you do marketing and packaging as well? And now I can say, well, actually we do, and having a productized service to refer. So that's been a good way.
A couple of things that I do to not let this happen is to get ahead of it. So as we're doing a project for a client, I'm thinking about, typically I'm working at the level of strategy, is where are they going to need help next, which we have expertise in. So instead of doing a project debrief with the client, I move that into we'll call it the right before the last third of the project starts. So there's two reasons for that. It's a project check-in. How is this going? So we made these promises, we're looking to achieve these objectives. I go right back to our proposal and say, do you feel like we're on track of achieving these things? Are you seeing the impact? Are you seeing ROI yet? I'm also building, there's a hidden one in here that I just realized. I'm building the case study. I'm getting information about impact, because often people will say to you, oh, do I have to wait 4, 5, 6 months, a year to see the impact on this investment? And you can just see their energy like, Marr. So I'm helping them get those dopamine hits, those gold stars really early. I'm also setting up the opportunity to go, okay, so when we're done this project, because we're approaching the last third or the end or the last quarter, who's handling this for you? Who's doing that for you? And as a particular case that comes to mind, I had a client, we had gone through do we not merge these two organizations that we own? Because it was a big question of, we're an agent, we are a PR and marketing agency, and we own an association. What do we do with that? So we had gone through the process of evaluating that. We decided we would merge, I facilitated, they decided they would merge. They came up with their next new name. And then I said, so Nicole, do you have a partner or do you have an in-house team who is going to develop the new visual brand? She's like, no, I don't. I said, do you want help with that? We do that. I just don't advertise it up front. And she's like, absolutely yes, because we had knocked the first two phases out of the park. It was just a natural handover. Go develop me a proposal, and away we went. So instead of doing the debrief and doing it at the end, when you intentionally move it into a spot that makes sense for your business life cycle, you can get way ahead of it and start to collect a lot of information that can help you move forward. And if they're moving on, at least you start seeding the case study. And then here's another one. I also set up quarterly and annual follow-up calls. So I do 4 quarterly calls to check in on ROI and impact of the work we've done. So I'm building on our case studies, because how many of us deliver something that is obtuse, abstract, almost intangible? I mean, brand, hello, what it was. But I'm drawing them to the conclusion of the value we've created, the ROI that they're getting, and how it's impacting their company. And then I'm setting up, great, can we touch base in another quarter? Sure, I'd love to. And so I'm touching base with them almost every quarter, if not every 6 months, to see what else is going on and where those opportunities lie.
Henry, make a note. I think these 4 should do a book together. I think the collective wisdom of these 4 is amazing. Let's dismount. Thank you very much.